The night was cold on the edge of the galaxy, where stars hung like lanterns in an endless void. In a small outpost known as Varn 7, nestled between barren hills and jagged cliffs, two worlds collided. Not through war or conquest, but through desperation. The air smelled faintly of rusted metal and scorched earth, remnants of battles long past. It was here that Cale Draven, a soldier with scars etched into his soul as deeply as they were on his skin, found himself waiting for something he had never asked for. Cale leaned against the rough stone wall of the trading post, arms crossed over his chest, staring at nothing in particular. His dark hair fell messily across his brow, and his uniform, patched up and worn from years of service, was more gray than its original black. He wasn't sure how he'd ended up agreeing to this arrangement. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was pity, or perhaps it was just plain exhaustion after years of fighting wars that seemed to stretch forever without purpose. Whatever it was, he couldn't take back his word now. Across the room stood Commander Jorik, a towering figure whose presence commanded respect even when he wasn't trying. A human-turned diplomat by necessity, Jorik had brokered deals between species so many times that he could probably recite interstellar treaties in his sleep. Tonight, though, there was no diplomatic finesse in his voice, just grim determination. "You're doing us all a favor," Jorik said gruffly, breaking the silence. "You know what's at stake." Cale sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I get it, okay? But marrying someone I've never met, someone who's not even human." He trailed off, unsure if voicing his doubts would change anything, or make him sound ungrateful. Jorik gave him a hard look. "She's not something, Cale. She's a person, and her people are desperate. You've seen what happens when debts go unpaid. Do you want another planet burning because we refuse to honor our agreements?" Cale clenched his jaw. Of course, he didn't want that. No one did. But still, the idea of being tied to a stranger, let alone an alien, felt wrong somehow. Alien brides weren't uncommon among soldiers stationed far from home, especially when alliances needed strengthening. Yet those stories always seemed distant, otherworldly. Now suddenly it was his reality. Before he could respond, the heavy wooden door creaked open, drawing both men's attention. Standing in the doorway was a young woman, or rather, a young something. Her figure was slight, almost fragile-looking, wrapped in layers of shimmering fabric that caught the dim light like liquid silver. Her skin glowed faintly, pulsating with hues of blue and violet, and her eyes were unlike anything Cale had ever seen. Large and luminous, they shifted colors subtly, like twin nebulae swirling in slow motion. "This is Lyra," Jorik announced, gesturing toward her. "She represents House Vale, one of the oldest families among the Zithari." Cale blinked, forcing himself to focus. Zithari, right? That explained the glow. The Zithari were known throughout the quadrant for their bioluminescent features and rumored psychic abilities. They were also fiercely proud, rarely mingling with outsiders unless absolutely necessary. For one of them to be standing here, dressed in ceremonial garb and clearly nervous, meant only one thing. Their debt must have been astronomical. Lyra stepped forward hesitantly, her movements graceful yet uncertain. She kept her gaze lowered, her glowing hands clasped tightly together in front of her. Despite the ethereal beauty of her appearance, there was something achingly vulnerable about her. Cale felt a pang of unease, not because she was alien, but because she looked so resigned. "Commander," she said softly, her voice melodic yet tinged with sadness. "Thank you for allowing me to fulfill my family's obligation." Her words hit Cale harder than he expected. Obligation. That's what this was, a transaction, a repayment of dues. Not love, not companionship, not even friendship. Just duty. Jorik nodded solemnly. "Lyra, this is Cale Draven. He has agreed to take you as his wife under the terms of the agreement." At the mention of his name, Lyra finally lifted her head, meeting Cale's eyes for the first time. And in that moment, everything changed. For Cale, it wasn't just the surreal nature of her gaze that struck him. It was the way her expression softened, almost imperceptibly, as if she were seeing something unexpected. There was curiosity there, mixed with a flicker of hope. Hope? Why would she feel hope? This wasn't exactly a fairy tale scenario. As for Lyra, her mind raced despite her outward calm. Humans were strange creatures, unpredictable and volatile compared to the structured society of her people. But this man before her, he didn't seem cruel. His face was lined with fatigue, yes, but there was kindness lurking beneath the surface. Kindness she hadn't anticipated. Neither of them spoke for several seconds, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Finally, Cale cleared his throat. Hi, he managed, feeling utterly ridiculous. Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. A small, tentative smile that lit up her entire face. "Hello," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, and just like that, the deal was sealed. Later that evening, Cale sat alone in his quarters, staring at the ceiling while trying to process everything that had happened. The room was sparse, furnished only with the essentials. A narrow cot, a rickety table, and a single chair. Outside, the wind howled against the thick glass window, carrying with it the scent of dust and decay. It was a fitting backdrop for the chaos brewing inside his head. He hadn't expected her to smile. Hell, he hadn't expected her to do much of anything besides stand there looking, well, alien. But she wasn't what he'd imagined. Sure, she was beautiful, undeniably so, but it wasn't just her appearance that caught him off guard. It was the way she carried herself, the quiet strength hidden behind her shyness. She didn't act like a slave or a bargaining chip. She acted like a person. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, sitting up straighter. The door opened, and Lyra entered cautiously, her glowing form casting soft shadows across the walls. She wore simpler clothing now, a loose tunic and trousers borrowed from one of the female officers stationed nearby. Though less formal, she still looked otherworldly, her shimmering skin catching the dim light of the overhead bulb. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," she said quietly, lingering near the threshold. "No, it's fine," Cale replied, gesturing for her to come in. "Make yourself comfortable." Lyra hesitated before stepping further into the room. She glanced around, taking in the modest surroundings, then perched on the edge of the chair opposite him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched thin, broken only by the occasional groan of the building settling around them. "So," Cale began awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck, "how are you holding up?" Lyra blinked, surprised by the question. "Holding up? Yeah, with everything. This whole situation." He waved a hand vaguely, unsure how else to describe it. To his relief, she chuckled softly. "It is strange, but I am adjusting." "That's good," he said, nodding. "I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for you, being taken away from your home, your family." Her smile faltered slightly, and she looked down at her hands. "It is difficult, but my family's debt required sacrifice. I chose to bear it." "Chose?" Cale frowned. "You didn't have to volunteer for this, did you?" Lyra hesitated, her luminous eyes flickering with uncertainty. "Not everyone sees choice as freedom, Cale. Sometimes, it is simply the path laid before you." He stared at her, struck by the wisdom in her words. Here she was, facing an unimaginable future, yet speaking with such calm resolve. It made him feel inadequate somehow, like he was the one who should be offering reassurance instead of the other way around. "Well," he said finally, leaning back in his seat, "if it helps, I promise I'll do my best to make this work, whatever that means." Her lips curved upward again, and this time the smile reached her eyes. "That is kind of you, Cale. Thank you." They continued talking late into the night, exchanging stories about their respective lives. Cale told her about growing up on Earth, about enlisting in the military to escape a dead-end existence. Lyra shared tales of her homeworld, describing its crystalline forests and vast oceans teeming with bioluminescent life. As the hours passed, the initial tension between them melted away, replaced by a tentative camaraderie. By the time dawn broke, painting the horizon in streaks of orange and pink, Cale realized something remarkable. He didn't dread the days ahead quite as much anymore, and judging by the peaceful expression on Lyra's face as she drifted off to sleep in the chair, neither did she. But peace, as Cale would soon learn, was a fleeting luxury in the galaxy's outer reaches. It started with a knock on the door early the next morning. Cale groaned, rolling over in bed and squinting at the clock. Who in their right mind would show up at this hour? Reluctantly, he dragged himself out of bed and shuffled to the door, opening it to find Sergeant Mara waiting outside. Her sharp features and perpetually scowling demeanor made her look perpetually annoyed, even when she wasn't. "What?" Cale muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Mara crossed her arms, glaring at him. "Commander Jorik wants to see you. Immediately." "Great. Just what he needed first thing in the morning." "Did he say why?" "Nope," Mara replied curtly. But judging by the tone of his message, it's not good news. Kale sighed, already bracing himself for whatever fresh hell awaited him. All right, give me 5 minutes. When he returned to the command center, Jorik was pacing back and forth, his boots clicking sharply against the metal floor. The hollow screen behind him displayed a map of nearby star systems, with several red dots blinking ominously. Kale's stomach sank. Sir, he ventured cautiously. Jorik whirled around, his face pale and drawn. We've got trouble. Big trouble. What kind of trouble? Kale asked, though deep down, he suspected he already knew. Pirates? Jorik spat, jabbing a finger at the screen. They've been raiding supply convoys along the border. Yesterday, they hit a Zithari transport ship. Kale froze. Zithari? Are you sure? Positive. And guess what they're demanding as ransom? Oh no. No, no, no. Don't tell me. One of their own, Jorik finished grimly. Specifically, someone high-ranking enough to warrant attention. Someone like Lyra. Kale's heart plummeted. Of course it had to be her. Everything about this situation screamed bad timing. What happens if we don't comply? Jorik let out a bitter laugh. Then they destroy the ship and everyone on board, including civilians. Kale clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. This isn't our fight. Why are we responsible for dealing with pirates? Because if we don't, the Zithari will hold us accountable. Jorik snapped. Their alliance with Earth depends on us honoring our agreements, including protecting their people. If we fail, we lose their support. And trust me, losing Zithari backing right now would be catastrophic. Kale wanted to argue, to point out how unfair it was to drag them into intergalactic politics over something they had no control over. But he knew better. Arguing wouldn't change anything. All it would do is waste precious time. So what's the plan? He asked instead, his voice tight. We negotiate, Jorik said, his tone resolute. You and Lyra meet with the pirate leader. Convince them to release the hostages in exchange for something else. Something else. Kale echoed incredulously. Like what? That's where you come in, Jorik replied, fixing him with a steely gaze. You're going to have to think fast. These aren't amateurs we're dealing with. They're ruthless, cunning, and they won't hesitate to kill if provoked. Kale swallowed hard, his mind racing. Negotiating with pirates sounded like a death sentence, but staying put and letting innocent lives hang in the balance wasn't an option either. I'll need backup, he said firmly. If things go south, I'm not walking into that alone. Jorik nodded. Done. Take whoever you trust most. But remember, the goal is diplomacy, not combat. We can't afford another skirmish right now. As Kale left the command center, his mind buzzed with questions. How was he supposed to pull this off? What leverage did they even have? And most importantly, how was he going to explain any of this to Lyra? When he returned to his quarters, she was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor and tracing patterns on the ground with her fingers. Her glowing skin cast soft shadows across the walls, making her look almost ethereal. For a moment, Kale hesitated, dreading the conversation ahead. Lyra, he began gently, closing the door behind him. We need to talk. She looked up, her luminous eyes widening slightly. Is something wrong? He knelt beside her, choosing his words carefully. There's been an incident. Pirates attacked a Zithari transport ship and are holding the crew hostage. They're demanding a trade, someone from your family in exchange for their release. Her expression darkened instantly. Who? You? Kale admitted, watching as her shoulders tensed. But we're not letting that happen. Jorik has a plan. We're going to negotiate with them instead. Negotiate? Lyra's mind reeled. Negotiating with pirates was suicide. Everyone knew that. Still, she forced herself to remain calm, focusing on the steady rhythm of her breathing. Panic wouldn't help anyone. I understand, she said finally, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. What do you need me to do? Kale hesitated, torn between admiration for her composure and guilt for dragging her into danger. Just stay close. Follow my lead. And if anything goes wrong, he paused, searching for the right words. If anything goes wrong, I'll protect you. I promise. She smiled faintly, though there was sadness in her eyes. Thank you, Kale, for trying. Hours later, they stood aboard a small shuttlecraft, hurtling through the void toward the designated rendezvous point. Kale had brought along 3 trusted comrades. Mara, whose sharp tongue masked a fiercely loyal heart, Tarek, a burly engineer with a knack for improvisation, and Rhea, a a medic whose quick thinking had saved countless lives during skirmishes. Together, they formed a team capable of handling almost anything, except perhaps the sheer unpredictability of space pirates. The meeting place turned out to be an abandoned mining station floating aimlessly in the asteroid belt. Its jagged silhouette loomed against the backdrop of stars, ominous and foreboding. As the shuttle docked, Kale exchanged a glance with Lyra, silently willing her to stay strong. The airlock hissed open, revealing a group of heavily armed pirates waiting for them. Their leader, a wiry man with cybernetic enhancements and a sneer permanently etched onto his face, stepped forward. Well, he drawled, his mechanical voice grating like nails on metal. Look who decided to show up. Tell me, human, why should I bother listening to anything you have to say? Kale squared his shoulders, refusing to flinch under the man's intimidating glare. Because killing hostages gets you nowhere. You want leverage? Fine, we'll give you leverage. But killing everyone on that ship won't solve anything. The pirate leader smirked, clearly amused. Bold words for someone so outnumbered. What makes you think you've got anything worth bargaining with? Kale reached into his pocket, pulling out a data chip. This contains classified intel on every major trade route in this sector. Hand over the hostages, and it's yours. The pirate raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Classified? Huh? And how do I know it's real? You don't, Kale admitted. But you'll never find out unless you cooperate. Behind him, Lyra shifted slightly, her glowing hands trembling ever so slightly. He resisted the urge to turn and reassure her, knowing that maintaining a united front was crucial. After a tense moment, the pirate leader barked a laugh. All right, human, you've got guts. Deal. As the pirates moved to escort them to the transport ship, Kale allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They'd bought themselves time, but whether it would be enough remained to be seen. Back aboard the transport ship, chaos reigned. Hostages huddled together, their faces pale with fear, while pirates roamed the corridors, weapons drawn. Kale signaled for his team to spread out, keeping watch for any signs of betrayal. Every instinct screamed that this was too easy, that the pirates wouldn't simply hand over the ship without a fight. Sure enough, as they approached the bridge, alarms blared, and the lights flickered violently. Ambush! Mara shouted, raising her rifle. Pirates poured out from hidden alcoves, firing wildly. Kale ducked behind cover, shouting orders to his team. Rhea, get those hostages moving. Tarek, secure the engine room. Mara, cover me. Bullets ricocheted off the walls as the firefight erupted. Kale darted forward, using the chaos to his advantage. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Lyra crouched low, her glowing form providing just enough illumination to guide the terrified hostages toward safety. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the ship, throwing everyone off balance. Sparks rained down from exposed wires, and smoke filled the air. Through the haze, Kale spotted the pirate leader sprinting toward the escape pods, clutching the data chip tightly. Not today, Kale growled, giving chase. The corridor narrowed, forcing him to navigate a maze of debris. His lungs burned, and his legs screamed in protest, but he pushed onward, driven by sheer determination. Finally, he burst into the escape bay, skidding to a halt as the pirate leader spun around, weapon aimed directly at him. You really think you can stop me? The pirate snarled, his cybernetic arm whirring menacingly. Kale raised his hand slowly, buying time. You win either way. Keep the chip, take the credits, whatever. But let the hostages go. They're not part of this. For a split second, doubt flickered across the pirate's face. Then, with a roar of frustration, he hurled the data chip to the ground and stomped on it, shattering it into pieces. Fine, take your damn hostages. But mark my words, human. You haven't seen the last of me. With that, he leapt into an escape pod and launched himself into the void, leaving Kale standing amidst the wreckage. Breathing heavily, Kale turned back toward the main deck, where his team was regrouping. One by one, the hostages emerged from hiding, their expressions a mix of shock and gratitude. Among them was Lyra, her luminous eyes shining brighter than ever. You did it, she whispered, stepping closer. Kale shook his head, smiling despite the exhaustion weighing him down. No, we did it. As the transport ship limped back toward Varn 7, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only temporary. The pirates might be gone, but the danger lingered, lurking in the shadows of the galaxy. And somewhere out there, forces beyond their understanding were stirring, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Little did they know the true test was yet to come. The relief aboard the transport ship was palpable as it drifted back toward Varn 7, its battered hull groaning with every passing second. The hostages, though shaken, were alive, and the pirates had been thwarted, for now. Cale stood near the cockpit, staring out at the endless expanse of stars streaking past. His body ached from the fight, but his mind refused to rest. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Pirates didn't give up easily, especially when their target was someone like Lyra. Lyra herself sat quietly in a corner of the main deck, her glowing skin dimmed to a soft shimmer as if reflecting her weariness. She watched the others around her, humans and Zithari alike, tending to wounds, comforting each other, or simply trying to process what had happened. Her luminous eyes occasionally flickered toward Cale, who remained distant, lost in thought. Despite everything they'd been through together, she still felt like an outsider looking in. Yet there was something about him, a quiet strength, that made her want to believe they could face whatever came next. "Cale," she called softly, rising to her feet and approaching him. "Are you all right?" He turned, startled out of his reverie. For a moment, he just looked at her, taking in the faint glow of her skin and the subtle shifts of color in her eyes. "I'm fine," he said finally, forcing a smile. "Just thinking." "About the pirates?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "And more than that," he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "This whole situation, it's bigger than we realized. Those pirates weren't acting alone. Someone sent them after you. Someone powerful." Her expression darkened, and she glanced away. "Yes, I suspected as much." "You suspected?" Cale frowned. "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" "I didn't know for certain," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But my family has enemies, Cale. Many enemies. Our alliance with Earth has only made us targets for those who wish to see both our peoples fail." Cale clenched his jaw, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "You should have told me, Lyra. If we're going to survive this, I need to know everything." She met his gaze, her eyes swirling with emotion. "And if I had told you, would it have changed anything? Or would it have only put you in greater danger?" Her words struck a chord deep within him. He wanted to argue, to insist that knowing the truth was better than being blindsided. But part of him understood where she was coming from. She'd spent her life carrying burdens far heavier than most people could imagine. Trust didn't come easily to her, not even with him. Before he could respond, the ship shuddered violently, throwing them both off balance. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed across the cabin. "What the hell is happening?" Mara shouted, rushing into the cockpit. "It's not the pirates," Tarek yelled back, frantically scanning the instruments. "Something else is out there." Cale stumbled to his feet and joined the others, peering out the viewport. At first, all he saw was the familiar void of space. Then, slowly, shapes began to emerge from the darkness, massive, angular vessels unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Their surfaces shimmered with an unnatural light, pulsating in time with some unseen rhythm. They moved silently, inexorably, surrounding the transport ship. "Those aren't human ships," Rhea whispered, her voice trembling. "They're not Zithari either." Lyra gasped, her entire body tensing. "It can't be." "What are they?" Cale demanded, turning to her. "The Everin," she breathed, her voice filled with dread. "An ancient race thought long extinct. My people, we believed they vanished millennia ago." "Well, they're not vanished anymore," Mara snapped, gripping her rifle tightly. "What do they want?" Lyra hesitated, her glowing hands pressed against her chest. "If they've returned, it means only one thing. They seek retribution." "For what?" Cale asked, confusion mixing with growing alarm. "For betraying their trust," Lyra replied, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Long ago, the Zithari allied with the Everin during a great war. But when victory seemed assured, we abandoned them, leaving them to face annihilation alone. We thought they were gone forever. But clearly we were wrong." As she spoke, one of the massive ships loomed closer, its shadow engulfing the transport vessel. A beam of energy shot out, enveloping the smaller craft in a web-like field that immobilized it completely. Moments later, a booming voice echoed through the ship, resonant and chilling. "Return the heir of House Vale," the voice commanded, "or perish alongside her." Cale's blood ran cold. "Heir? You never said you were royalty." Lyra closed her eyes, guilt etched across her features. I hoped it wouldn't matter. But yes, Kale, I am the last surviving heir of House Vale. If I go with them, perhaps they will spare the rest of you. No, Kale said firmly, stepping in front of her. Absolutely not. We're not letting them take you. There's no choice, she cried, tears glistening in her luminous eyes. If I don't surrender, they'll destroy everyone here, including your people. Is that what you want? I want to protect you, he shot back, his voice cracking with emotion. Isn't that why we're doing this? Isn't that why you came here in the first place? Her lips parted as if to protest, but no words came out. Instead, she reached out, her hand brushing against his. In that fleeting touch, something passed between them. An unspoken understanding, a shared resolve. We'll fight, Kale declared, turning to the others. All of us, together. Mara raised an eyebrow. Fight how? With what? We're sitting ducks out here. We use their arrogance against them, Lyra said suddenly, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The Everin may be powerful, but they are also arrogant. They believe themselves invincible. That is their weakness. Tarek grinned, catching on. So we make them think they've won. Lure 'em in close, then strike where it hurts. Rhea nodded, already formulating a plan. We'll rig the engines to overload. When they board us, we detonate it remotely. It'll cripple their flagship, at least temporarily. It's risky, Mara warned, crossing her arms. One misstep, and we're all dead. It's our only shot, Kale countered, his determination unwavering. Are you with me? Without hesitation, the team agreed. Each member set to work, preparing for the desperate gamble ahead. Meanwhile, Lyra focused on channeling her psychic abilities, using her connection to the Everin's technology to mask their intentions. As the alien ships closed in, the transport vessel appeared helpless, drifting aimlessly in space. When the boarding party arrived, materializing aboard the ship in flashes of light, they found the crew seemingly resigned to their fate. Kale and his team played their parts perfectly, feigning surrender while subtly guiding the invaders deeper into the ship. Lyra stayed close to Kale, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of what was at stake. Finally, the trap was set. With the Everin forces concentrated in the engine room, Tarek activated the countdown sequence. The pirates hesitated, sensing something amiss, but it was too late. The explosion ripped through the ship, sending shockwaves that crippled the nearest Everin vessel. Chaos erupted as the remaining ships scrambled to regroup. Seizing the opportunity, Kale led his team and the surviving hostages onto escape pods, launching them toward Varn 7. Behind them, the Everin fleet faltered, their once invincible aura shattered by the unexpected resistance. As the escape pod hurtled through space, Kale wrapped an arm around Lyra, holding her close. We did it, he murmured, though the weight of their ordeal lingered. For now, she replied softly, leaning into him. But this isn't over. The Everin will return. And when they do, he said, meeting her gaze, we'll be ready. For the first time since their journey began, Lyra smiled. A genuine, radiant smile that lit up the cramped confines of the pod. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And in that moment, surrounded by the vastness of space and the promise of hope, they found solace in each other. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and often cruel. But amidst the chaos, love and courage could bloom in the unlikeliest of places. And for Kale and Lyra, that was enough to keep fighting, for themselves, for their people, and for a future worth believing in. Years passed since that fateful encounter with the Everin, and though the galaxy remained as unpredictable and dangerous as ever, Kale and Lyra found a fragile peace in their corner of it. They settled into life on Varn 7, a place that had once been nothing more than a desolate outpost but now felt like home. Together, they built something neither of them had ever imagined possible. A family. Their son, Aaron, was born first, a curious blend of his parents' traits. He inherited Kale's dark hair and stubborn determination but carried Lyra's luminous glow, which pulsed faintly beneath his skin whenever he was excited or emotional. Aaron grew up fascinated by both worlds, human and Zithri, and often peppered his parents with questions about stars, battleships, and the bioluminescent forests of Lyra's homeworld. His boundless energy kept Kale on his toes, while Lyra marveled at how much of herself she saw in him. A few years later, their daughter, Nira, arrived, softening the edges of their chaotic lives. She was quieter than her brother, with an introspective nature that reminded Kale of Lyra during their early days together. Nira's eyes shimmered constantly, shifting colors like swirling galaxies, hinting at latent psychic abilities far stronger than her mother's. Though still young, she already showed signs of extraordinary empathy, able to sense emotions in others before they even spoke. Life wasn't without its challenges. The shadow of the Everin loomed over them, a constant reminder that danger could return at any moment. Kale remained vigilant, training not only himself but also rallying local forces to prepare for another confrontation. Meanwhile, Lyra worked tirelessly to mend relations between humans and Zithari, determined to strengthen their alliance against future threats. Their efforts weren't always appreciated. Some viewed their bond as unnatural, a betrayal of tradition. But those voices were drowned out by the love and laughter echoing through their modest home. On quiet evenings, the four of them would gather around the fire pit outside their house, sharing stories under a sky dotted with countless stars. Kale would recount tales of Earth, painting vivid pictures of sprawling cities and vast oceans. Lyra added her own memories of crystalline trees and glowing creatures that danced in the night air. Everin listened wide-eyed, imagining himself as a hero destined to explore every corner of the universe. Nira sat quietly, her tiny hand resting in her mother's, absorbing everything like a sponge. One evening, as the flames crackled softly, Everin turned to his father with a mischievous grin. "Dad, when can I start flying ships, like you did when you fought the pirates?" Kale chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "When you're older, and after you've proven you can follow orders without arguing." "I don't argue," Everin protested, earning laughter from everyone except Nira, who gave him a pointed look. "You argued yesterday about cleaning your room," she said matter-of-factly, her voice calm but firm. Everin groaned dramatically, flopping onto the ground. "Nira always tells on me." Lyra smiled, pulling her daughter closer. "That's because she cares about you, Everin. And maybe someday, you'll thank her for keeping you grounded." As the children bickered playfully, Kale caught Lyra's gaze across the fire. In her luminous eyes, he saw the same mix of hope and resilience that had drawn him to her all those years ago. Despite everything they'd faced, the debts, the pirates, the Everin, they had created something beautiful together, something worth protecting. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Kale and Lyra stood side by side on the porch, watching the twin moons rise above the horizon. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken words and shared dreams. "Do you think we'll ever really be free of the Everin?" Kale asked finally, breaking the quiet. Lyra sighed, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I don't know, but even if they come back, we'll face them together as a family. That's what makes us strong." Kale nodded, wrapping an arm around her. "You're right. As long as we have each other, we can handle anything." For a while, they simply stood there, bathed in the silvery light of the moons. Somewhere in the distance, a breeze rustled through the dry grass, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and starlight. It was a peaceful moment, one they knew might not last forever, but one they cherished nonetheless. The story of the human soldier and the Zithari heir became legend, not just among their people but across the stars. It was a tale of unity in the face of division, of love triumphing over fear. And though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Their legacy would endure, carried forward by the next generation.